Alright everyone, so welcome back to the observatory on this sunny but thick cloudy, broken clouded day here in Cyprus. So it's perfect time to get stuck back into the mods on the observatory and the next step of the Project Power series. So today we're going to start looking at the DC distribution system that I'm putting in for the equipment. And if you'd seen my short that I pushed out the other day, you'll have seen that I fitted this panel to the front of the power bay. And what I plan to do here is I'll be able to put the control equipment on the front of here for allowing me to turn on and off the individual devices, whether it's the cameras, the observatory controls, the power heaters, etc. Just anything I need to control on the DC systems. So obviously behind this panel is where all the solar system power controls are, and we've obviously got all the DC inputs coming in here from the solar panels and the batteries, and then I've got the AC inverter for the 240 volts and 230 volt supplies, and then down at the bottom is the DC power converters. So these are taking the 12 volts off the battery systems and down onto 12 volts. I'm actually waiting to get a hands on another one of these so I can split the system off into different parts. So the intention is that for this one that is fitted, I'm going to use this for the supplies for the observatory and for the rig number 1, which is going to be the telescope inside the observatory. And then the second one I'm going to fit there is for the external rig, and potentially a third rig for the solar if I ever get that set up. So to facilitate that, I have bought a couple of these blocks. So these are going to be the DC distribution blocks, and these are individually fused automotive fuses distribution block. So it comes with a whole bunch of the different size fuses for all the different equipment. So I can individually fuse as per the requirements of the individual devices. And then this is the 12 volt distribution block I'm going to use. And you just got your common negative rail at the top here, and then all your individual positives out to all the individual devices. So this is a 12-way block, and it also has these LEDs here which indicate if there's been a fuse failure on any of the individual circuits. So what I'm planning to do is put these on the back of the door, and then have the single runs out to all the individual pieces of equipment. So I've got a couple of them, one for each of the DC supplies once I get the second one. And then for the individual controls, I've got my hands on these Sonoff controllers. So these are 4-channel controllers with a whole bunch of volt-free contacts. So the little relay boards inside here, and this has individual control buttons for each of the circuits. And this unit will actually work off of either a DC supply 9 to 23 volts, or it will also take an AC input should you desire. And then we've got the 4 channels with both normally open and normally closed relay contacts. Now I went with these ones because it has the relays, and I'm working off of DC. There is another version of this on the market which is basically just straightforward 240 volt distribution, 240 volt distribution out based on whatever supply you're feeding into it. So I wanted the separate, obviously, for the DC controls. Now this unit will connect to the network over Wi-Fi and is also compatible with Google Home and Alexa, so I can do voice control of the individual channels if it works. It can also support your standard 433 megahertz wireless key fobs, So you could buy them off of the internet as well and just program the individual buttons on those key fobs for the individual channels. So you could also do that as a fallback or as an alternative to having to press buttons or do it over Google Home or Alexa. It's got 4 channels, all volt-free contacts, and each channel will support up to 10 amps. So everything should be well within the capabilities of these Sonoff units. Okay, so let's start getting into it. So on the back of the panel door, I plan to have these mounted off to the side here, and then I can bring the cables through the front of, drill a hole through the wood, bringing the power and individual channels out to the front. And then on the front of the door, as I say, I'll have a number of these mounted along the top here, and I'll probably have, you know, the observatory, rig 1, rig 2, rig 3, or whatever I end up doing. And if I ever want to add more equipment, I can always put more stuff down here at the bottom, and then just bring the cables through the relevant slots out to the fuse rails. And then from the fuse rail, I'll just put a loop of cable so that it's free to move when the door is open, and just bring the power back round and into the necessary DC supply block on the backboard. So that's in theory. And then for cabling, I've obviously got more of this heavy duty 16mm cable left from when I did the main install. That'll just route along here. And then I've got my hands on this 2-core cable, I think this is 1mm cable, or 1.5, I can't remember now. And I'll just run that out to all the individual devices on the pier, or out to the outside rig. And I'll probably put a box of some sort just to terminate into for all the individual devices. Okay, so next up, let's get measuring and fitting. Alright, so we've got the first bits of hardware installed. So that's the 2 power distribution blocks mounted on the back of the door. Now these blocks are actually rated for 100 amps each, with each circuit being up to a maximum of 30 amps. So there's more than enough capacity within these units, considering that each of the DC to DC converters is only rated for a 30 amp output. So that's more than plenty for each one of these. And as I've only got one of these at the moment, what I might do is actually link the 2 of them together into the one DC unit, because I'm not using that full 30 amps at the moment, and that'll at least get both the circuits up and running if I need them. So the next step is front, and on the front of the door you can see I've got the 4 Sonoff units mounted on the front. Now I left this space at the end here because I might move the ventilation control unit down onto here, just to tidy things up a little bit with the wiring. Next up is obviously to do some wiring. Alright, so let's get going. So power jacks, where are they going to end up lying up? Alright, so that's for that. And then the cable. Alright, so next I'll take these all out and go and solder plugs on the other end. So let's head inside and do that now. Okay, here we go. 4 plugs. Let's see if this works. Turn off the solar iron and head back to the observatory. Okay, so that's 4 cables made up for the power feeds, so now I can just pop them in and do the wiring at the back. Okay, so that's the 4 power feeds. Alright, now on to the back. And I'm going to use these typical sticky pads just to feed all the cables neatly together, but as we know, these sticky pads never stay long enough, so I'm also going to back them up with a screw just to hold everything in place. Perfect. So I've got some fuses. Now unfortunately the fuses that come with the power distribution block, the smallest ones available in the pack is 5 amps. And these units only need 0.5 amps operating current. So these will have to do for the time being to get me going, but I'll have to try and find some smaller 1 amp fuses or 3 amp in the shops next time I'm out looking. So I'm going to do them one at a time, starting with this unit number 1, and we'll try and pair it up with the phone and Google Home and just see where exactly we end up. So if I open the door, so I'm going to go into the top distribution block and I'm going to go into fuse number 1, and the red light's gone out. And we've got a flashing Wi-Fi indication on the Sonoff unit. So I'm going to go into my phone, and I've downloaded the iwi link application already. Alright, so now we need to add devices. So let's see how this goes. So please set the device into pairing mode, which it is. We need to choose a Wi-Fi network. Alright, and now do next, and it's going to try and find the device. So it's found the device, it's now retrieving device info, it's registering the device, it's come up with the correct model number, and it says add to room, so not in a room. Okay, so it's come up, I don't know if you can see that on the phone, but it's come up with the 4 channels, and the Wi-Fi link's gone steady. So if I turn these channels on, you can see the red light for channel 1's on, 2, 3, 4. Excellent, so that works. So next I'm going to connect to Google Home, link your iwi link to Google Home page. Oh, there we go. So now it says to add smart devices to your home, and I've got Forcho Pro R3. We'll select that and we'll add it to the room, Cypress Villa, add it to move device, and it's going to go into the room My Observatory, and device is now added to the room. Excellent. Now I don't know if I need to add the individual channels or if it just sees that and knows that there's 4 channels there. So I added just a 4 channel Pro R3, and that's an on-off, does all 4 channels simultaneously. So what I need to do is add the individual channels onto the unit as well. So I'll pair them up now. Oh no, I don't need to, it's come up there. So I've got now individual control of each of the channels. Excellent. So now I need to see if I can name them. So if I choose the item and I can change its name. So this is on channel 1. So unit number 1, channel number 1 is going to be, let's say, the rotator. Click save, and I can add it to a home. So Cypress Villa, and that's it done. So it's come up as rotator. If I turn it on, channel 1 comes on. Excellent. So the question is, will it work audibly? Hey Google, turn on Observatory rotator. And there we go.
Turning the rotator on.
Voice control. Excellent. Hey Google, turn off observatory rotator. And the channel's gone off. Perfect! So now it works. So what I need to do now is add in the other three. Hey Google, turn off observatory Sonoff 4.
Got it. Turning off Sonoff 4.
So there we have it. That's all 4 Sonoffs connected to the phone app, controlling through the phone, and also synced to Google Home. And now we've got voice control of all the devices on the network. So now I can just go and start adding in all the different channels. So camera 1, camera 2, mount, rotator as we did as example. And yeah, so far so good. And in theory I should be able to also create scenes. So scenes are when you can set a number of actions happening. So I could, for example, create a scene called turn on observatory, and it'll bring on the rotator, then turn on the hub, turn on the mount, turn on the camera, and do them in a sequence so the system can come up healthy. Alright, so I'm going to crack on now and start wiring in some of the devices, and we'll catch up with you in a bit. I managed to get the wiring done for the first devices that I wanted to get onto the system. So as you can see here, I put some labels on just so I know, and I can control them remotely, I can control them locally on the device using the buttons. So for this one here, we've got the rig one, which is the RASA inside the observatory. I've got the power supply going to the hub, to the mount, and to the main camera. And over on this unit, I've got the ventilation kit. As you can see, it goes on and off. And the other channel I've got on here at the moment is the dome rotator, so the next dome control system. And the power supply is coming in, and then the individual feeds going out to the individual devices. So if we open up the back of the door, so here we can see all the wires coming through, all tidied into the distribution boards. And then I've just got them on these extended flexes that go down through the floor of the observatory, and then they're pinned along the joists of the floor and come up onto the pier. And what I'll also do as future mods is, once I sort out what I'm doing with the external rig, is I'll bring all that in down and along to where the external rig is on the other side, or the outside of the observatory. And then I've got the 2 fuse boxes with all the distribution fuses. So over on the pier, all the 3 power cables come up under the floor, run up the side of the pier into this box where I've just got termination blocks, and then one going into the USB hub, and then one going off to the camera, and the other going off to the mount. So that's the power for the RASA at the moment. So the other thing I've done is I'll show you on the app. So here's the AWE app, and as you can see, I've got the 4 Sonoff units, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I see Sonoff 1, the ventilation kit and the rotator is currently on, and then Sonoff 2 are all off at the moment. And I've paired up the AWE link to Google Home. So if I go across to the Google Home app, and in here we can see, here's all the devices on the system, and I've got a Google Home Mini that sits next to the laptops for voice control, and I can obviously control the individual devices on here. But what I've done is I've gone in and I've set up a routine for the RASA. So I've got turn off RASA and turn on RASA, and when that runs, what it'll do is it'll tell you it's a way to turn on the RASA, and then it turns on the hub, then it waits a second, turns on the mount, sorry, it makes an announcement turning on the mount and the camera, turns on the mount, turns on the camera, and then announces it is finished. And then I've got a reverse of that for turning off the system. So for example, if I press the play on the phone and do turn on RASA,
turning on RASA, turning on USB hub, turning on mount and camera, Rig 1 turned on. Clear skies.
And likewise, when I hit the turn off,
OK, turning off rig 1. Turning off camera, mount and USB hub.
there we go, the unit shuts down.
Rig 1 turned off.
And so that's it controllable through the phone. But as I say, I've got the Google Home Mini on the my desk, so I can always get Google to do it by voice control. So, okay Google, turn on RASA.
Turning on RASA. Turning on USB hub. Turning on mount and camera. Rig 1 turned on. Clear skies.
And okay Google, turn off RASA.
OK, turning off rig 1. Turning off camera, mount and USB hub.
So there we go.
Rig 1 turned
Full
off.
voice control and individual channel power for the rig 1 inside the observatory. So the next up thing I'm going to have to do is do the external rig, as I say, but I haven't decided quite exactly how I'm going to do that one yet. Basically it'll be the same idea as what we have here with distributed feeds, but I'm going to be moving some equipment around, and I want to get some external weather boxes for doing the final terminations underneath the dome at the side of the dome outside. And then for the third rig, that's probably going to be a solar setup, but again I haven't finalised what I'm going to do there. But the core concept is all done for the observatory and for the rig number 1, so everything is working as I was hoping. So that brings to the end of this video. So this was just around the DC distribution, integration of the Sonoff units, and integration with the Google Home Assistant. So on that note, thanks for watching, and clear skies. And if you have any questions about any of the equipment or the setup, then don't hesitate to drop a comment. And appreciate if you like this video, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for future content. And thanks again. I'll see you later.